Very bizarre news has surfaced. The iPhone 14 has been crowned the worst resale iPhone to date of all iPhone models. Now, the reports are saying that analysts have determined from multiple extensive research methods that the iPhone 14 has lost its value by a significant 24.69%, which is literally almost 25%. This was done by some research and analysts analyzing 1,000 tech products listed on Amazon, US and UK in used conditions compared to the original price. The iPhone 13 and the iPhone 12 have not been nearly as bad as this. The iPhone 12 has actually lost its resale value by 10%, and the iPhone 13 has lost its value by 16.62%. And this tells us a few things. The iPhone 14 is no longer a phone that you'll want to consider if you want to have a phone that down the line is worth more money. Now, why is this happening? Why has this happened? And what is the overall what to do with this situation? So first off, we have the iPhone 14 battery degradation issue. It's all over the internet, and I'm not the first to be telling you guys this, is that the iPhone 14 does not hold its battery health very long, and people are complaining that the iPhone itself, the battery health is decreasing faster than other devices. So what does this mean? My iPhone 12 Pro has a 85% battery health. This means that if you are using an iPhone 14, 14 Pro, 14 Pro Max, you might see yourself having a shorter lifespan than someone on a different iPhone. And this, in my opinion, has to do with the engineering of the phone, but it's something to consider, because if you are buying an iPhone 14 secondhand today, ask yourself, what do I need to do to make sure this phone's actually gonna last me 6 months or a year or even more? And if the person's really hard on their phone, you'll actually be able to tell that. For example, if they say they've had the phone for a month and the battery health is down to 89%, that's kind of a red flag. Second thing this comes down to is, I'm not sure if you guys have looked at the actual specs of the iPhones, and let's just be honest with ourselves, is that the iPhone 13 to 14 was not a big jump. What you're gonna notice first off is that the biggest difference is always on display and the dynamic island. However, not else much really changed. According to Apple's website, we get an hour extra of battery life. The iPhone 14 Pro does have significantly better lighting in outdoor lighting, so if that's important to you, that's great. However, size and weight, if you look at all the size and weights, we got heavier. How is that innovating? Now, the iPhone 15 Pro has innovated in every single way, and it was recently just called the best iPhone yet, and I'm not surprised. There's a bunch of reasons for this. So for me personally, if I go to iPhone 14 and then the iPhone 15, what we notice is the benefits and the upgrades start pretty quick. First of all, we have a titanium design. The next thing on the list is a new processor. Now, the 13 to 14 did have a new processor, I'll give it that. We have a new camera, which basically converts photos to portrait mode. Now we have USB Type-C. So if you're a content creator like myself and you're looking at transferring content to your computer, USB Type-C is kind of a game changer for speed. And then we're looking at the big ones. So the big ones are the actual phone itself. If you go into a Best Buy today and you look at the phones, what you're gonna notice is that the phones are smaller and they are thicker, you know, I'll give you guys that, but they are smaller. Apple is innovating the phones to be easier to hold in your hand. They are also making the phones more attractive to people who are using these phones day in and day out. The iPhone 14 and the iPhone 15 are, in my opinion, dramatically different in size and weight. The iPhone 14 Pro is 7.27 ounces and the iPhone 15 Pro is 6.60 ounces. Now that's not like, you know, a pound different, but for a smartphone that you hold in your hand all day, it is different. So anyways, guys, why is the iPhone 14 Pro not holding its value? It comes down to one simple thing, is that the iPhone 14 was not an impressive enough innovation to continue to hold its mark in the iPhone lineup as something of a noteworthy upgrade. If you ask me, I think the 15 Pro is the biggest upgrade we've had since the iPhone 11. For some added clarity, it is important to realize that from all the research and analyzing I've been doing, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus seem to be having the least amount of issues compared to the Pro and Pro Maxes. As far as other options, if you guys want to opt for something other than the 15, the 14 Pro, 13 Pro, and 12 Pro I think are going to be some of the best options you can buy. Now, if you are okay with not getting as many new features, the 14 Pro is a great option. However, the 14 Pro is also one of the heaviest phones to date from Apple since new releases. The 13 Pro is even a little bit lighter. The 14 Pro is going to be 206 grams and the 13 Pro is going to be 204 grams. That is not a big difference. However, it is a difference. Now, as far as height and weight goes, they are going to be very similar. So really what you're getting when you go from the different phones is going to be the fact that the dynamic island is new to the 14 Pro and always on display. Now you're gonna say, well, that's not really a lot of big difference. Well, that's why I'm talking about this. Is the 13 Pro is a fantastic phone. You still get ProMotion technology, so the 120 Hertz. ProMotion technology is fairly hard to explain, but what it basically means is that your iPhone screen just looks a little smoother and things just kind of scroll better. That's how I would put it. Always on display is something that I think is just kind of a gimmick from Apple. If it's not something that's important to you, I would move on. Now, the dynamic island is a magical way to interact with iPhone. So if you guys are new to iPhone or you are on something like a 12, I think the dynamic island is pretty cool. It is only on the 14 Pro and the 15 now. The dynamic island basically allows certain notifications and certain ways you interact with your phone to become a little bit more animated, and basically things are at the top. If you get an Uber ride or things like that, it animates at the top and then allows you to know what's going on. As far as the camera goes, the cameras are going to be different. So the 14 Pro is going to have a 48 megapixel camera, main, ultra wide, and telephoto, and the 13 Pro is going to have a 12 megapixel camera. So if you guys are big in photography, the 14 Pro might be the way to go. The other big difference is if you're somebody who's really into looking at your phone outside, the iPhone 13 Pro has a max brightness of 1200 nits. That's peak brightness, and the 14 Pro has 2000 nits of peak brightness. And if you do the math on that, that's a big difference. So guys, if you guys are looking for a new phone and it's not the 15 series, what I'm gonna recommend overall from this video is the 13 Pro. There's a reason for that. The 14 Pro seems to be having resale issues as far as, in a year, selling it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist could be a nightmare. The 13 Pro seems to be a great idea because it's a big enough jump from the 12 Pro to actually have some of those really needed features. It seems that people are not really heavy into the always on display. However, the ProMotion technology is something that I think holds value within Apple and its ecosystem because that is really a really nice noticeable feature. If you absolutely have to have the always on display and that updated camera, what I would do is I would tread lightly and maybe do some research on your own about the 15 and 15 Plus. Like I said, it does seem like the 15 and 15 Plus do have lower rates of these errors with the burn-in effect, the overheating, the crackling of the speakers. But I will say, just so you guys know, I would not buy a Pro or Pro Max today unless you guys are planning on doing reviews like I am and you want to go out and buy a Pro or Pro Max and do some testing on it and see if it actually has problems. However, I also will put in here, and I'm gonna have something on screen, that there are some Reddit users that are having zero issues with their Pro and Pro Maxes, saying they're the best phones they've ever had, and they're having no issues. So what this comes down to as a passionate technology nerd, I guess you could say, is that it seems like this could be a titanium thing, but I also think this could just be Apple rushed out this phone that has all these cool new features, and unfortunately maybe they didn't do their homework or their due diligence to find out if this phone actually had some issues under the hood. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.